I finished The Golden Spoon. This is basically Great British Bake Off, but then somebody is murdered. So, if you want to hear all of my spoilery thoughts on it, please continue.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft spoken.
What's up, friends? So, The Golden Spoon is a book I read recently, and I had heard kind of mixed reviews. I totally understand these mixed reviews, but overall, I had a great time with it. It ended up for me being a 4 out of 5, and I did listen to it as an audiobook, so I don't know if your mileage would vary a little bit if you'd read it in physical form or had I read it in physical form. It is an ensemble cast, which is really nice because we have a lot of different characters who we get first person perspectives, or in some cases third person perspectives. So we have Betsy, who is this little old lady who runs a baking show out of her house called Grafton. And she was basically raised very rich, and this is the family home. Well, the family home is in disrepair, and she started doing these baking shows so that she could pay to do repairs and upkeep this old house. These have been going on for years, and she also has written a ton of cookbooks that are really famous. And this year, a couple different things have happened. The main one being that she has a new partner, I think his name's Archie, to come in and help her with being a host. She's always been the host by herself, and now they have this dynamic. And I do really think they are very, in some ways, similar to the Great British Baking Show judges. Like, you've got, the very sweet grandmotherly Prue, or I don't remember who was the early seasons. We watched both. And then you have the Paul Hollywood, the handsome, sexy, and then a little bit more critical of people's bakes, the bad guy, bad cop guy. So you have these two. We never get his perspective on anything, but we get Betsy's in a third person. So we don't ever hear directly from her, which you find out why later. So then you have our 6 contestants. I don't remember everybody's names, but you have Gerald, I think, who is, one guy is an architect. One guy is a nerd about time. Like, the time. He's very, everything in the world is about time. Everything is about getting things done in a timely manner and routine. I think he might be on the spectrum, or he's written to be on the spectrum maybe a little bit. And I will say, I loved the diversity of these characters, the neurodiversity at the very least. There is another character who is a spoiled rich kid. Spoiled rich kid's maybe not the right thing. He made millions in the tech market, and now he's kind of just figuring out what to do with his life. And I think his name's Perdumna. I'm pretty sure I've got his name right. So like I said, there's 3 guys, and one of them is Gerald, but I don't remember which one he is. The 2 of the guys, except for Perdumna, they get kicked off the show pretty early, so I think that's why I don't remember their names so much. Then we have Hannah. Hannah used to be a waitress who made really good pies, and she's kind of just wanting something different in her life. She feels stuck and trapped in her small town life. She has a boyfriend that she's not really vibing with, and she just wants something different. She's also very attractive and cares a lot about her looks, apparently. And so she is going out and trying to get out of her small hometown, get the prize from the Golden Spoon, which is to have a recipe book made. This is her chance at fame and fortune. We have Stella, who she was a journalist, and then she was date raped, more or less, by her boss. They were at a work function together. He'd invited her, and it sounds like he drugged her and raped her. And she obviously quit her job after that and has a lot of PTSD, lots of trauma. And I loved the trauma representation, or the, anxiety representation in this. It was so good. I loved seeing that with her. So, we have one character who is probably on the autism spectrum, and then another who has like anxiety disorder, PTSD. So, Stella, while she was watching, like laying on her couch trying to recover from everything, she started watching Bake Week, which is the show. And she started baking because she had this recipe book that she bought when she was a kid. She was a foster kid. She had a lot of trauma even before the situation with her boss. And so since she had all this trauma, she's really just struggling to get herself into it, into work, into doing something. So she starts baking, and she finds, okay, when I'm baking, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not having the anxiety. So she is there as a contestant, and the last contestant is Lottie. Lottie is an older woman, the same age as Betsy, or darn close to it. We find out at the end, and I did say this is spoilers, so that she is Betsy's sister. But Betsy doesn't recognize her because they haven't seen each other since they were, 10 or 11. And they didn't, Betsy knew it was her sister, but Lottie didn't know that Betsy was her sister. So there's like a whole dynamic. But Lottie has come to Bake Week to learn what has happened to her mother. So she had, and her mother used to live with Betsy at Grafton, and then Lottie's mom disappeared. And so she's been trying ever since Bake Week opened up open up Grafton to contestants. She's been trying to get on the show. Well, she has finally made it. She's coming on the show, and she wants to like check out and see if she can find clues to what happened to her mother as she's, doing the bake show. So you have a lot of really interesting characters going on, interesting contestants, and they are just doing the baking thing. And I loved all the baking stuff. All the stuff that was reminiscent of the baking show, I was there for. I loved all the characters' complex backgrounds. I love the neurodiversity representation of the character who, I think also Perdumna might have some ADHD. I don't want to diagnose people because I don't know what the author intended, but like Perdumna just is really high stimulus, really stimulus seeking. And then we have, like I said, I think it's Gerald who's really time conscious. Like one of them was really like time conscious and couldn't handle when things didn't go his way. And then we had, like I said, a girl who has anxiety. So I love the representation. That was my probably favorite part, that was the characters. The characters and the backstory, they're all super interesting. Now, in the beginning chapter, we know that Archie is we know somebody's going to get murdered. It turns out it's Archie. But that doesn't happen until the very, very end. So up until the end, the mysteries we're trying to solve are basically what happened to Lottie's mom and who is sabotaging contestants on Bake Week. Because the first guy that goes home, he didn't go home legit. He went home as a sabotage because his salt got switched out with his sugar. So he's really bummed. It was the architect guy. He's the first one off. And so he was really bummed because like he thought he checked it, and it was so weird because everybody else's containers were the opposite. The salt was in the little container, the sugar was in the big container, and like somebody obviously tampered with it. So he went home the first day. Then the second day, the guy who is really time oriented, he was using an orange extract he brought from home, and somebody switched it out with gasoline. And he freaked out on set, like freaked out. And so like we like the first time we assume something is happening, but we know with his that something is happening, and he accuses them of sabotage. So we're kind of, as readers, trying to figure out, okay, who's sabotaging it and what happened to Lottie's mother. And we do know, of course, from the intro, somebody's going to die. And I don't know if we know who it is that is the co-host in the beginning, but I think you figure it probably is. So we're continuing on. All the baking stuff is happening. I think the middle, I'm glad there were 3 mysteries involved because the middle could have dragged had it I loved what was happening in the middle because it was still very active, even though we're not focused on that first mystery, that murder. As a matter of fact, that murder mystery that starts the whole thing is kind of just almost an afterthought in this. It's really, you think you're getting into a murder mystery, but you're not really getting into a murder mystery. Not, you are, but not really. So I think that was one of the biggest complaints I have throughout the thing is just that, we're expecting to be figuring out what happened and who died and why. And really, that's almost an afterthought at the end. We're spending much more time figuring out who's sabotaging Bake Week and what happened to Lottie's mom and meeting characters and doing baking and having fun and exploring characters. So if you're really in this as a murder mystery, this may not be for you. If you love British baking show and want it with just a hint of mystery, I'm sorry, my tummy is rumbling. If you can hear it, I did just eat lunch, and apparently my stomach is just rumbling all over the place from eating lunch. Anyway, so I absolutely loved the the character work and stuff that happened at that, like, in the middle. But there is no murder until the very end. So in the end, we have Archie, I have the co-host guy. I think his name's Archie, but I'm just not sure. We have him, and I did this as an audiobook, so that makes it even harder for me to remember. So we have the co-host guy, and he is killed. He seduced Hannah, and then he basically rejected her, and Hannah and Stella killed him. And we never get justice for him, really, because one of the issues is that gets blamed on Betsy. So we find out that Lottie's mom is dead and Betsy killed her. And I thought that was a little bit far-fetched, maybe. Betsy is basically this jealous kid who she, was angry because she found out her dad was having an affair with Lottie's mom. And at 11, she like murdered this girl. And her parents covered it up. Like, her parents covered it up, and her dad didn't do anything to protect his other child, which I have a lot of issues with the dad's behavior, but, he was cheating with the maid, so I mean, and the maid that lived there, and they had a baby. So obviously not the greatest guy to begin with. But, we also find out that Lottie, her mom was a baker, and the Betsy stole all her recipes. So Betsy has not actually like gotten her fame justifiably, which I think also might be a little bit of a stretch of the imagination. Like, is that really possible? But I was liking it. I'm gonna go with it. So we learn that she stole the recipes from Lottie's mom and that she murdered Lottie's mom. So then, when her co-host is dead, it is just assumed that she killed him as well. And she never really, they're trying to prove that she didn't do it at the end. Like, there's a little epilogue where it's like, she's in jail, she's doing fine, she doesn't really mind it, she doesn't have a lot of responsibility and stress, which is nice. And, like, I don't know, I'm a mom. Sometimes it does seem like, oh, I could just go to jail and nobody'd bother me and I'd get to sleep and read and nobody'd bother me and I wouldn't have responsibility. Like, obviously that's not true and that's horrible, but like sometimes, and there is that in the back of the book. It's like Betsy's like, well, I don't have to do anything. I don't have any responsibilities. People just take care of crap and it's great. But her lawyers are trying to prove she didn't kill the co-host, and so she probably wouldn't get a lot of jail time for the mom because Lottie's mom, because I mean, like, she was 12. She was a kid when it happened. And yes, it's not nice to push people and kill them, but she's a kid. She doesn't know any. She should know better, but it's different than when you're an adult. So we learn that, and we learn that Melanie, who is the producer, has been sabotaging the bake show to make it more interesting. And so has the co-host guy. They've been sabotaging. No, she's been sabotaging to make it more interesting. And the cameraman was sabotaging with her. But like the producers wanted to kick Betsy out, and that's why they brought in the co-host, and they were having like Melanie try to up the drama and ante because the show got boring. Although, like, honestly, The Great British Baking Show type show is never going to get boring to me. I just want every year to see people come in and be nice and cook cakes. Like that's the drama I want. What kind of cake are people making? Like that's why we watch the show. I think there's this feeling sometimes of, oh, we got to up the ante. No, please do not up my bake week ante. Just leave it how it is. Everybody being nice and making nice pastries. So we do have some resolution. I didn't love that the girls never got in trouble for what happened with the co-host. Now, we're told it was self-defense. I don't know how much it was purely self-defense, maybe, but I didn't necessarily love that part, and I thought the mysteries, that mystery was kind of, you think that's going to be the main one, but it's really like an afterthought. So I didn't love that. But the rest of the book was so fun and so cozy and so bake show that I absolutely just love this book. So have you read it? I hope you have, since you just listened to the whole thing and all the spoilers. If you read it, what'd you think? Drop it down below. Also, are there any other mysteries that take place like during a baking show that have the vibe of Great British Baking Show? Because I want all of those. This has been Jane, guys. See you next time. Bye.